Hi Aries, welcome to your June 2020 Law of Attraction reading. It's Raina here. So this isn't something I normally do, but I've done it in the past. And I actually started the reading. I had to start over again. Pardon any outdoor noises. I have the windows open because it was so hot that I had to. And this spread I did not create myself. It was created by a site called emeraldlotus.ca, but I think it's tarot. I just want to make sure I get the right. It says Emerald Lotus CA, but I think they have a new website. There's like Emerald Lotus Tarot. So I'm just going to start, and the first card is related to the vibration that you are emitting at this time. So vibration, you could say energy that the person is emitting, has to do with what you attract. That's part of the law of attraction. One of the things that I'm changing, I've already done 4 of these readings, I believe, so far. So for the rest of the 8, I'm going to speak about more areas of life, because I was kind of focusing more on money and business or career than love, relationships, and things like that, which I really think can totally be what people are trying to manifest. They may be trying to manifest something, excuse me, on the romantic side. So the first card I got about your vibe that you're emitting is the Queen of Swords. Most of the people watching this are going to be women. It doesn't have to be strictly about women, but I will say that if you're somebody who has been through a lot, you may be kind of aloof right now. And I think of women as the ones who get approached, which is not true 100% of the time, obviously, with all the different permutations out there. But if you are a person who has kind of come across in a more either disinterested or emotionally unavailable kind of a way, then that can cut into your chances of, having somebody have the guts to do it. Usually Aries is very warm and, you got that passionate side, but there's something that is keeping you more under control. And even with work matters, you may be all about business. This could possibly be because you're disillusioned about something, in the workplace, and feel like you've gone through so much to get where you are, and it's really not what it's cracked up to be. And so then we have the second card, which is supposed to be something that you need to be more open to receiving, which is the Two of Pentacles. This can be a card of balancing 2 jobs, but in a that, yeah, of course, anybody can get another job and maybe feel like they're not putting all their eggs into one basket. But I feel like this card is more about, especially for Aries, since you are so autonomous, starting your own business. And you may, for some reason, be opposed to that, or you have no idea what you would do. But you might want to seriously consider it, simply because even if you are in a job that you don't particularly care for, if you're working on your own thing, that it's temporary. That you've got some other things going on, and you feel more hopeful. You feel like, oh, I'm not just depending on this one thing. There can be that sense of like, yeah, I have somewhere else I can go. And just the creative factor, the feeling of autonomy can be great when you are doing something for yourself, because you make all the decisions for yourself. If this is relationship related, it can be about making a choice. I even see with the Queen of Swords, it can be a choice. You know, related to a relationship, and you may not want to make that choice. You may say, it's not so bad. But you're just doing so because you don't want to have to make the choice. And you have to be more open to receiving this idea that sometimes it is time to choose. Even if you feel like you still care for that person. What will come when I am more open to this? We got a card that some people really think of in a bad way, the Tower card. And actually the Tower card means release. It means that it lets go of the inertia. If a person feels trapped, they can feel this sense of sudden freedom. Now, it doesn't mean that it doesn't come without upheaval sometimes, but at least it gives the person a sense of, I have other options. And that is finally, it's come to a head, and now it's like, the tension builds and then it goes away. Because the thing that the person feared the most was finally experienced and dealt with. Now, what's interesting is that Aries has had Uranus transing through your sign. You had it for 7 years. And just based on Aries people that I know, and as well as just the other cardinal transits that may have caused a lot of upheaval, like for instance Pluto and Capricorn, affecting perhaps your 10th house, which is the career house, and maybe having a lot of kind of like this fall from grace at some point. Uranus in Aries was probably providing a lot of, maybe some of those tower moments came back then. So you may be like, I don't want any more unpleasant surprises. Well, this is not really like that. I think this will be more pleasant. And in relationships, this can be release of a situation that just isn't working, and especially if it's someone that you have held on to. And the 4th card really brings this point home. So we have the card to represent the next step you have to take. 3 of Swords can be cutting something off very definitively. Not allowing that kind of back and forth with a person that you're dealing with. It's like a clean break. That's a good way of putting it. And so whether it's in the workplace or on the home front. And the 5th card is, how can I manifest even more successfully? So this is a card of advice. The Queen of Pentacles is associated with the earth element. It's a double feminine energy. Aries is a masculine energy, so it's more in the outside world. This is more about getting in touch with nature, things that are not, having anything to do with competition or advancement, but simply, it's almost like meditation in a sense. It's a material form of the spiritual nature, but also the home. And maybe you've been forced to be at home and it seems like some kind of a punishment, but if you embrace it, what came into my head right at that moment? Bake some cookies. Even though that might feel like a little bit old-fashioned, it can be something that it's a grounding effect. And doing things that are creative, even something like cooking can be creative, but something tangible where you're getting your hands dirty, you're getting your hands in the dirt, gardening, planting, gardening is planting seeds and nurturing the plants. These kinds of behaviors can, even though that they are literal seeds, they can be symbols of other kinds of things that you want to manifest in your life. So if you feel like in that in-between stage, you can think that, you can see how by doing one thing, it helps you in other ways. And let's say you're a female Aries who's looking for a man. If you're a female Aries, maybe you need to be a little bit less like the Queen of Swords and more like the Queen of Pentacles. Maybe you need to be a little bit more demure, allowing yourself to take a back seat, so to speak. I know that sounds really bad, because I'm a female fire sign myself, being a Sag, so that doesn't sound right at all. But it can actually be a great thing, because you can explore different sides of your nature. If you have a tendency to be the aggressor, which you might very well be, take kind of a back seat. If you see somebody that you like and you're talking to that person, let them call you. Let them, dictate, do it. Especially if you're younger, especially if you're under the age of 35, because I've noticed that your generation tends to have the woman more as the aggressor. I was even in even in a school environment several years ago and observing a class, and it was so wild to me to see these boys that were afraid of worms and the girls that were the ones picking the worms. It was like a complete gender reversal of when I was growing up from an earlier generation. So the boys being more of the timid ones. And then I heard a little boy just on the street, and he was saying, yeah, and then she called me and she asked me out or something. Like, oh, did she ask you out? Like, how the girls would ask each other about the boys. Just strange to me. But it is what it is, I don't think that it's the end of the world. We don't have to go back to women being barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. Although the Queen of Pentacles maybe you should be barefoot and pregnant and enjoy it. And, Queen can be the mother. Maybe it's time, if you're of a certain age, Aries female, and you are, have been resisting motherhood because you're afraid of losing your freedom, but by the same token, you really feel this strong desire to have children and to start a family. Maybe you can start to warm up to that idea. So that's interesting. And then the last card is a message from your higher self, source energy, spirit. 5 of Wands. This is a card that I associate with Aries quite a bit, and it's a card of competition. But usually, because maybe of my own personal feelings about competition, I don't like competition, and yet I can totally see that there are people in this world, and I think the sign of Aries tends to be one of them, that really thrive on competition and always kind of like challenging themselves to do better and things like that. I know that there are people like that out here, and your sign is like that. And I think that there is such a thing as healthy competition. But it means that other people are on the same page. It means that you're not in a workplace environment that is dog eat dog, where everybody is in for themselves. But if you are surrounded by people who are really good at what they do, and you just feel like you want to step up your game and be like them, or keep up your game, that's a totally different story. It's like a push for excellence. I think that is a wonderful thing. So I think it's understanding the difference between those two ideas, that there is such a thing as toxic competition. And Aries, when it's imbalanced, and this can come from insecurity, from when we look at charts, it can come from an afflicted sun, where there's a lot of squares or oppositions. And the person, like for instance, a classic one is a square between the sun and Mars. And I'm talking about for any sign, because then the person feels like they have to prove themselves. Well, can you imagine if it's an Aries person and their Mars is in another cardinal sign that squares off to the sun sign? How that would be for that person? That would be even more obnoxious, because Aries is sometimes pushy, Aries can be impatient. You're impatient primarily because you're so enthusiastic, and you just want, you're like a little kid at Christmas. So it's not, just because somebody's impatient doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that they have a lot of passion for life, and they're eternally curious and enthusiastic. We need more of that in the world, actually. But when it shows up as impatience, it can sometimes be haste, doing things way too impulsively, not thinking before you do something. And so the bottom line is that for some of you, this is going to be much more of a quest for excellence and just stimulation. And for others, it's a feeling of wanting to be number one, and that creating toxicity, because you're the first house and you tend to like to be number one. I wonder if Aries people have a greater propensity for writing first on comments on YouTube. But in any case, that's the lesson, is learning the difference. Because if you are in a bad situation, then what you want is to accept the fact that things are changing, the Tower card, but also doing it yourself. The Three of Swords, cutting things off when you need to. Also, with love relationships, the Five of Wands suggests that you need to really pay attention to any kind of conflict that is on a chronic level, because sometimes Aries people think, hey, we have a spicy relationship, and really it's like hellacious, because the person is always, it's like the Bickersons, they're always fighting, and that's not good. And you want something more than that. So in any case, Aries, I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you would like a personal reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.